Hi, loves. Happy Friday. I've had an important conversation and it's been coming up. It's come up a number of times. So, as usual, when the similar thing starts coming up, I like to share it as food for thought. So, this has to do with what you identify with. A lot of what we identify with, we kind of learn from. We learn from social media, we learn from mainstream media, we learn from the people around us. And we start identifying with it. So the labels that we kind of take on, or the labels that are put on to us, are very often labels that come from the outside. They may or may not be true for you. So, in terms of what you identify with, I just want to share this for both men and for women. For women, they will very often identify with their reproductive system. So women will often say things like, if they're struggling with infertility, they will say things like, I'm not a woman, or I don't feel like a woman because my body's not working, I don't have any children. Or women that have had a hysterectomy will often say, I'm no longer a woman, I don't feel like a woman because my reproductive system has been taken. Or women that have had a mastectomy, they will often say, I don't feel like a woman anymore because I don't have breasts. Men very often identify with their job and being the provider. So if when a man loses his job, he will often say, I don't feel like a man because I'm not providing. Or if they're dealing with like erectile dysfunction, I'm not a man anymore because my body's not working. So these labels, or how we see ourselves, is really important because when our bodies change, it impacts our identity. So for women, I just want to say, you are so much more than your reproductive system. Having children may or may not work for you. Just because it's normal, or just because it's perceived as being a normal thing, or if we get to a certain age and then we have children, doesn't make you more or less of a woman whether you have children or not. If you have a hysterectomy, you're not more or less of a woman by having a reproductive system. We are still women when we get to 80 or 90 years old and our reproductive system stops working as a natural phase of life. We are still women regardless. So there is so much more to you than your reproductive system. There is so much more to you than your breasts. And for men, there is so much more to you than the job that you have or the income that you provide. What you identify with, or what is really important, is the stuff that is on the inside. It's not your job. It's not whether you're a mom, whether you're a daughter, whether you're a son, whether you're a wife, whether you're a husband, whether you have a particular job, whether you have a particular qualification. These are all aspects of yourself. But who you truly are, and the identity of the actual person, is the stuff that is inside of you. So people will often say education is really important because the qualification can never be taken from you. On one level, yes, this is true. Education can never be taken from you. But what can fundamentally never be taken from you is what is inside yourself. So being a mom is only one aspect of potentially being a woman. Not everyone is going to be a mom. Not everyone wants to be a mom. And if you are or if you aren't, it doesn't make you more or less of a woman. Not everyone is going to be a wife. Whether you are or aren't a wife doesn't make you more or less being a woman. And the same for being a husband. Whether or not you're married, whether you're a husband or not a husband, doesn't make you any more or less being a man. Whether you have a job and you're providing an income for your family, doesn't make you any more or less a man, whether or not you have a job or not. So these are all things that very often come up with people when they have an experience or they have an operation or something traumatic happens where it makes them question, like, who am I now, or how do I fit into this picture because my body's no longer working, or I've had an operation, or I've lost my job. A lot of this loss and grief and anger and a lot of these emotions that people process has to do with a shift of your identity. So, well, it's really helpful if you just zoom out and get some perspective on what it is that you're identifying with and how important that is to you. Some people identify with their nationality, for example. They're very patriotic and they will like fight to the death for a citizenship or for a piece of paper that has a country stamp on it. For me, I don't identify with my nationality. I don't identify with a passport. I don't identify with my occupation or what I do for a living. These are all aspects of myself, but they don't make me who I am. Like, what makes me who I am is what is inside of me, what I have with inside of me, my core values, my character traits, the type of person that I am, how I interact with people in the world. These are the things that are really important to me. So pay attention to your social media streams, pay attention to the things that you're buying into, pay attention to the things that mainstream media kind of put in your face to make you think that this is how life should be and how a picture perfect life is supposed to look, because we're supposed to have a white picket fence and 2 kids and a car and a dog and all of these things that are deemed as to be normal. It may not work for you, and this may not even be what you want for yourself. So labels are really important, because once you take the label on, if that label ever shifts in the sand, the process of loss and grief is really, really difficult, because you've totally identified with something that is not permanent. None of the external things in the external environment is permanent. So a conversation that I had earlier today, for example, I said, if Kim Kardashian walked past the street and crossed paths with me, I wouldn't even know what the woman looks like, because I don't pay attention to any of that stuff. So I just wanted to give you that little bit of food for thought. If you're feeling like I'm not a woman because XYZ, or I'm not feeling like a man because XYZ, just put a question mark on what does being a woman mean for you? What does being a man mean for you? Because what is deemed as societal norms in one place is not necessarily the norm in another place. It's only because we consistently see the same thing that we start identifying that with that, and we think that our life is supposed to look like everybody else's life. But there are a number of people that have everything on the outside that may look perfect and wonderful, but on the inside they're really not okay. So don't automatically buy into what you see in the environment around you. I hope that is helpful. I hope it's useful food for thought, and I hope it gives you something to consider. Have a lovely day. Bye.